First, I want to just apologize for any noise in the background. I am on a horse farm, and I do have a dog sitting here. So at any moment in time, she might chime in. Apologies for that. Normally, she sleeps quietly the whole time. You guys, if some of you I've seen, you've been around for quite a long time, so you're not exactly newbies. And that's kind of the point of this show today is to kind of give you my perspective from start to where I am now, having been introduced to Jeff almost a year ago, searching for answers. He didn't answer the big question, why are we all here? But he's answered a lot of questions on how to make money on this, in this thing we call trading. So, well, first, disclosures, so I don't get anybody in trouble. Like Lee says, trading is dangerous. Don't do it. If you are a scaredy cat, that's not a good, you gotta have a thick skin, and you gotta have some common sense. So there's that. So this is titled My Journey to Date. Not dating as in dating people. Journey since I began trading with Jeff and Lee. And actually even before then, my background, this is me on the right, and then with Captain America down there on the bottom. I am native West Virginian, and for those of you who are in the United States, you probably don't hear much about West Virginia, but I'll tell you, good things come out of West Virginia, things like me. I grew up with the love of horses, and I turned that into a career for about 20 years. I rode and trained with some of the top trainers in the world. So I have a background in German training, and it's very methodical. So being introduced to trading and the systematic approach was music to my ears, you know. So when you guys hear me talk about tempo and rhythm, a lot of that comes not just from music, but from the rhythm of the horse, you know, the number of beats per stride and that sort of thing. So when you're training a horse up, there's a very definite way to go about it. There is right and wrong. There's different ways of getting through those methods, but there's definitely systematic approach to it. Who's Jerry West? Jack Jensen says, and Jerry West. I'm not sure what that is. Is he a horse trainer? Like a Western type? Because that's not my thing. Anyway, in the early 2000s, I had moved to Florida. Oh, out of Virginia. Yeah, see, that's a different state. People make that mistake. It's not Western Virginia. It's a whole different state, West Virginia. Anyway. Oh, really? West Virginia. All right. Well, I'll have to. Cabin Creek. Okay, I was actually born in Cabin Creek. That's weird. Zeke. Okay, anyway. I had some clients that were buying horses that cost more than I made in a year. And I asked them what the heck, you know, they did for a living. And when they told me they were real estate agents, I thought, my God, they're dumber than a box of rocks. If they can do it, I can do it. So I got my real estate license in Florida in 2004. I kept training and kept my farm, but I had a real good run with real estate through 2007-08 when things, you know, hit the fan. And I decided to go back to school, get my master's degree. That's when the web designer kind of came in. And so I went from selling horses to selling houses to selling websites. Did that for a number of years. Again, the technical analysis, it played right into learning coding and all that sort of thing. I still missed the interaction with people, although what I have learned through Jeff's webinars was I am, what's the term, Jeff? Not introvert or extrovert,
Ambivert.
Ambivert. Because I like people, but only, so much. I like myself just fine. So sitting alone for long periods of time is totally cool with me. But, I like the interaction with people. So most people are okay most of the time. And then in 2000 and it's been 4 years, I guess. So 2016, I met this young man who was a Navy diver. And we got married 2 years later, and I was whisked off to California. Southern California is a nice place to visit. Not my cup of tea for living. It's too dry. I miss the Florida humidity, so I'm back here right now living in my RV while he's on deployment. So I have been challenged with trading on Wi-Fi. And, when I first met Jeff, he was like, don't do it. Like, you're an idiot. And I was like, well, I don't have a choice. This is the only way I can. So I've got to figure out how to make this work. I had started with options and had fairly good success doing that. And then I guess it was late 2018, I realized I could trade futures. And that's when I really got serious about it. I had really good luck the first month or so. I actually was able to turn a $1,500 account into about $15,000 in a month. And that was December of 2018, and I just shorted everything. So I thought, well, heck, I can easily replace my income like this. Problem was that didn't happen again for about 6 months. And in between time, I was up and I was down, and I had no rhyme or reason. I couldn't figure out, I didn't know about a Bubba, and I couldn't figure out where to go with that. So when I learned about, I think it was Top Step Trader, that I figured out, oh, I can trade somebody else's money. And through that process is what led me to Jeff and then our workshops. Because there was a handful of us that kind of kept picking and asking, can you teach us? Can you mentor us? And finally he gave up and he said, sure, I'm going to do a little workshop and we'll see how it goes. And that's what turned us into, we didn't really call it anything. I guess it was just a 2019 workshops. And that's where you want to start. So as a beginner, whether you have, whether you're new to trading or new just to our group and you have a lot of experience behind you, because I had experience, it wasn't all good experience, it wasn't necessarily bad, but it was inconsistent. Anita asked me, why did I move to futures if I was successful in options? 2 reasons. One, if I had this to do over, I would start with futures. It's just it's more straightforward. It's pure, less money needed. As far as, I thought I needed, a $50,000 account to even, day trade. And I was very interested in learning to day trade. Options aren't always slow, but they're more complicated, way more complicated. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get your ass handed to you. Yeah, I sell premiums and I can get in and out of trades in days. And I do that pretty regularly, but couldn't do it daily, and I couldn't count on a regular amount. I wanted to turn this into an income that I could totally rely on, because my husband doesn't know where he's going to be a year from now or 2 years from now or 5 years from now. We know we're going to be in the Navy, but we could be moved around. I'm actually the mistress, not the wife. The Navy's the wife. She tells us where to go and what to do. So the desire for me was to be able to take my talents and align it with what, I could be more flexible than he could be. So, and I had this interest in trading, and that's where I got started. But yeah, so the futures for me is just, it's pure, it's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple in that you can just, I mean, just buying and selling, right? There's no complicated stuff. You make it more complicated than it has to be, I think, is the big aha I had the first couple of workshops the first couple of sessions that we had with Jeff. It really was like, oh, I'm really, with all this technical analysis, because I'm heavy into the Elliott wave theory and Fibonacci's, and you know, I was mentored by someone who's really good at it and very successful, but it's intense. You have to really study a lot, and you know, anyway, I can't be in a trade for long periods of time by the nature of being on the road all the time, and I'm trading on Wi-Fi. It's just not wise, not safe. So learning to scalp made sense to me, but I could not stand any of these day traders, all the gurus. My gosh, and they're yelling, and they're, you know, this is the next great thing, and I want something steady. I want something consistent, and I want to be able to count on it because my husband counts on it, right? So, sigh. Well, Matthew, there's an answer, because not that I've figured everything out, but you have to reduce things. Jeff's approach of being simplistic, I mean, I've taken it to like the Uber. I live in an RV, for God's sake. And I can make this work because I have reduced the use of resources on my computer, the data that I use. Yes, an RV. An RV is a recreational vehicle. It is a house on wheels that I literally hook up to my truck, and I can drive it from California to Florida and still live in the same, go to bed in the same bed every night. Yes, adventurous. That is what I am. I still have a condo in Florida, but I rent it out, so somebody's living in it. So unless I want to sleep on my own couch, that's, but anyway, that's our life right now. So that's the first thing. Where I started was simply just that tabula rasa that Jeff talks about. You have got to make yourself teachable. So it's not that what you know is wrong or bad or whatever, but if you already knew what you were doing, if you were already where you wanted to be, you probably wouldn't have stumbled upon us in the first place, right? So if you're looking for some holes to be filled in or a new way to approach the market, that's what this has been for me. I can still use all of the knowledge that I have from the past, but I set it aside and just kind of take this all in as if I'd never heard of any of it before. And I think that's real important. So if you're new, the first thing you want to do is go back, and we're going to start with the 2 workshop videos. And you know, I just recently started rewatching them, and honestly, nothing needs to be added to or taken away. You really have to just take some time and sit down with a pad of paper and take some notes, because the very first thing you're going to do is decide what you want to do with this. I have on my notes here, decide what you want to be when you grow up. But for real, wherever you are in your life, you're trading because you want to accomplish something. What is that something? For me, I literally built a business plan around my trading. Let's see. I'm going to share this with you guys. We're going to get real personal here. I hope that's okay. Can you guys see my Excel spreadsheet?
Not yet, Amy.
No? All right. Let's see. New share.
the Zoom interface is really confusing. So I
Yeah, is
take your
that
just take yeah, there it is. You got it. Take your
okay?
time. It disappears, and we
I've
sympathize.
I use it sometimes with some other things that I do with my website development, but I don't usually have this many windows open. So, all right. So this is kind of granular, and I've gotten this in more detail other places, but this is kind of where I start. What specifically do I want out of trading? And for me, my ultimate mission is to live in Barbados. And there's a whole story behind that. Someday I'll share with anybody who cares. But my husband and I, that's our thing. Is all roads lead to Barbados, and we set a time for that. So got a 10-year plan here, and specifically to with regard to trading, how is trading going to get me there? And so I have like 3 buckets. Can I zoom in a little? How can I zoom in? Let's see.
Bottom right corner, there's a percentage thing. You can just increase and decrease using the plus or minus down there. Display settings, the very bottom right, your other right of the spreadsheet window. There you go. You're heading the right way.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah, just keep going to the right. There's a plus and minus.
Oh, okay. Is
There you go. You got it.
that better?
Yep.
Okay. And it's not so much that you need to read what my plan is. You got to come up with the plan, right? So for me, I I have 3 buckets, and this is not anything new. You guys have heard this. This is money management 101. I have a long-term bucket, I have a medium-term bucket, and I have a shorter-term bucket. Well, obviously the day trading generates the short-term income. Well, what I want to do with that? Well, I want to add that. Well, 2 things I want to do. I want to pay off our debt, and I want to add that to my options trading account. My options trading account needs to grow from the 40 or 50,000 that I started with to a goal of 100,000. And so I'm steadily doing that, doing my monthly trades over there while I'm learning and growing my day trades. The bigger picture of that is I do like to do long-term investing. I do like to own some companies in the future. I'm kind of a Warren Buffett, value investor as far as that goes. But you got to wait till those companies go on sale, and you've got to do a lot of research to figure out where what you want to buy. So you have to have money sitting in an account, cash ready for when those things happen. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting, I'm just accruing, that cash along with paying down our debt. We had some credit card debt and stuff that we wanted to get rid of and pay off our cars. Everybody has those sorts of things. So if you don't have a budget, if you don't have a business plan, I say start there, because if you don't pick a port, you're going to be a ship out on the ocean just tossed about. And for me, one of the biggest things that helps with FOMO or over trading is having this plan. I know that I've reduced what I need to accomplish by creating a very specific plan that if I hit my goal every day, I can quit and I can go drink margaritas or play with the horses or take a nap or whatever I want to do, because I'm well on my way. I don't have to push it any harder than that. If I exceed my goals, that's great. And if I fall short, then I just take stock. I make sure that I'm, assessing what went wrong and improving. So that was the very first thing. Through the workshop videos, we worked on our process. And you'll hear about that in the very first video. Jeff describes what a bubba is, and he describes what a process is and the reasons behind it. So this is my original this is my original process, and it really is really done well. I print it out. I have it sitting out here because Jeff said he printed it out, and just like, you know, the kindergartner that my teacher told me so, I just did it. So, and it really does help. You know, you have to kind of be humble, and you have to just, if somebody is trying to teach you something, do it. And if it doesn't work, then, you know, you've wasted a little time. You've learned how to not do something, but you're going to probably get something out of it. For me, it was, okay, now I know I have a very specific goal in mind. I've reduced it down to monthly and weekly and daily plans. And now I have to figure out how to execute that. I used to just sit down and trade, you know, or I do all of that, you know, Elliott wave forming and figure out where the highs and the lows and the retracements. And a lot of that's good for context. But what I've learned from Jeff is it really doesn't help me make money. So it's great to fill your head full of all that stuff, but if I'm not going to get my $100 a day from it consistently, that it's worthless. It's nonsense. It's not sensible. So that's the next thing you have to do. If you don't have a written plan, if you don't have a written process, and you don't have it in front of you on a regular basis, why are you trading? It's because you're just out there. It's like shooting with no target. And I feel for anyone who's frustrated, but if you don't take stock and take inventory of your own life, then, you know, everything else is, it's going to be chaos, I think is probably the best way. So from that, then, what I heard Jeff say over and over and over was do the drills, learn how to do, and he described different drills that he did. And I thought in the beginning that, you know, I had to always shoot for 2 or 3 or 5 or 8 points. You know, I'm trying to make several $100s a day. I had a $2 or $3 or $5,000 account. That's crazy. That's a huge percentage when you think about it on the bigger. Who does that? And I'm new at this, so I even think he was very nice to me when he said it the first time. I don't think I made him say it a second or third time because other people did. You get the mother voice from Jeff. I told you this once. Don't make me stop the car. But I had to listen to what is realistic. What, for someone of my expertise, my background, my education, my experience. Yeah, David's. Yeah, well, we did. We all got a little bit schooled, which is good. It's healthy. That helped me to go, okay, what I thought was a base hit was really a home run, like an extraordinary home run. I was doing really, really good. So I had to just adjust it down. And I adjusted it down to where, like, if I can get one tick with one contract, and I could do that over and over, that's really good for someone who's just learning. And so that's just kind of where I started. So I set up this, what I call a Benjamin challenge. And you can see these aren't the actual amounts. This was my template, and this was about the date that I started it. And then I just set up a spreadsheet, and this starts on a Monday, and this runs through I don't know, 30 days or whatever. Actually, it went on 2 months there. But I started with what I had originally had in my account for this goal. And I just wanted to get $100 net per day. And I wanted to do it every day that I traded for 30 days. And I kept coming to the workshops. I kept reading the material. I read the books, but a lot of it I won't say it came in one ear and out the other, but it went in one ear and filed for later. So, because my singular focus was to really get good at the one tick drill, taking one tick of profit, not having any losers, reducing that MAE. And now I have the luxury of being able to do this all day long because my husband has the real job in the family and we are living on his income. So my job is to figure this out and grow our savings. And so I have a singular focus. I could do this 8 hours a day, and I did. I mean, I sim traded for 3 weeks straight and just one tick drills. I did them a number of different ways. I Googled it. I learned from, is it Peter Davies with the jigsaw? Had some good videos on that. I watched some YouTube. I asked Jeff. I put my success and failures out there on our Slack channel. This was a Slack channel prior to the one that we're using now. So I would get feedback, you know, good, bad, or ugly. And I just noticed after about 2 or 3 weeks of really intense practicing that, I was getting pretty good at picking those real high probability trades. And so my results have been very, very close to this. And in January, I actually started real trades. And what I did with this, because I'm sure some of you guys are going to ask for a copy of it or whatever, I made a copy and I kind of just made it a template. But this is what I did. I started a new combine. I went with one up, because all I had to do is make 1,500 one time. And I was pretty confident I would be able to do that. And I just divided my $1,500 over the 15 days. I just need $100 a day net and I'm in. And just like clockwork, you know, I just worked my way down. This, for my business plan, I took to the next level. And then I literally put, when am I going to take my first paycheck? And how am I going to spend it? So I had goals set. I want to pay off my car. I want to pay this credit card down. And I literally planned out my entire year doing that. So that's how that went. Yeah, it is granular because every single day, this is the new combine that I just started. This is the date that I start, and these are my results. I put in my goals because I try to make the goals a little bit higher than you need them to be. And I'm just ticking away. Now, they aren't always exactly, you know, you shoot, your goal is something that you try to hit. Sometimes I get it right on the bullseye, sometimes a little high, a little low. But ultimately, I know my goal is going to be achieved because I can just keep plugging along. When and what helped me learn to discipline with trading? Okay, so I am CDO. And for those of you who aren't familiar, that is OCD in alphabetical order. So I will take something that seems random and I will fit it into a box. So I break things down. That's just kind of my, it works for me. I know this isn't good. Everybody has a different way. Some people are more macro. Yeah, you can stick a square peg in a round hole. You just got to push hard enough. Well, you can round off the edges just a little bit. You don't have to be completely round to fit in there. But go ahead, Lee or Jeff.
That was me, actually. Yeah,
Okay.
you good catch. I was just going to say, this is a really good lesson here because what you're explaining is how you find simplicity, and I've said over and over again how important that is to what I do with minimalism. But finding simplicity can be done on a very granular level or on a 25,000 foot level. but it's critical that whatever, you know, an individual person's simplicity is, that they figure it out. And so I think what you're describing makes total sense, even though it's completely different from the way I do it. So
Mm-hmm. This is how I grew out of what you taught. And it for me, measurable steps, you know, the journey of 1,000 miles is, you know, one step at a time. Sometimes there's a step backwards, but you're still making progress if the next step is forward, as long as the cumulative is more forward than backwards, right? So, but you still have to pick a direction that you want to go. That's the other thing. I think if you don't start with this, if you don't start with some high level of what do you want out of this, then, I mean, if it's just entertainment that you want and you're having fun, then none of this is relative to you. But if you want to turn this into a business, you need to have a business plan of some kind. So anyway, that's out of that process came my plan. And from those tick drills, I really found my Bubba. So where to begin? You begin with the workshops, you work on your plan, you develop a process. And these are things that are, you repeat. They aren't once and done. See, my screen sharing is paused. Let me make sure. Resume share.
you're on your spreadsheet still.
Okay, because you got to go and tell it to share something else. I gotcha.
Yeah,
There.
you have to, right. And it's sometimes a little bit of lag we've seen in the last few sessions. We're still seeing your spreadsheet.
Okay, there.
Yeah, now we're back. Oh, there you go. Now you've got your come on, Jeff, your slide, where to start.
Okay, so I just wanted to go back to this because that's really okay. Well, actually, what I wanted to do is go to our, yeah, but I gotta tell it. See, it used to be you just pulled the screen up and it would automatically share, but not so much anymore. All right, now you should see our website. Yes.
Yes, we got it.
Okay, so for those of you who, took me a minute to figure this out, because those of us who were originally in Jeff's group, then kind of when that ended, we were like, but wait, we want more. And so he was kind enough to do kind of a, oh, what's it called when you do a little bit more, an encore. And that was what we started that in January, and that was where the Motleys kind of were formed. And that was just like the group that started in the fall. Probably about 50 to 75% of us moved on to the new group, and it was out of that group that I think Lee and Jeff then developed this trading research group. So I got a little bit lost in the shuffle and didn't realize we had a website for the longest time. I just knew we had a new Slack channel. So for those of you who don't realize, there is a website with all of our recordings from way back from the very beginning. And you access that through you log in when you first get a membership, and then you go to the library. But on this page, you can go to the library or to the Slack. Now, I have Slack set up on my mobile, and I have it on my laptop. So I get every notification that I want all the time, so I can stay in constant contact. And I think the overriding theme of what I want to share with you guys is participation. And the ones who participate the most, you do put your neck out there sometimes to get your head cut off. But you also are going to be the ones that learn the most, because you're going to remember things, and you're going to pay a closer attention, and you're going to get the most feedback. So if there's two things that you get out of this, is do a plan, think about what you want to do, and participate. So the library is here. You really want to start with the workshops, and this one's going to take you a while. But even just the first 2 videos in this are going to set you up to understand a lot of what's going on live. I think you should still attend every live session, but you should be working through and taking notes and participating in these sessions as if you were there originally. That's very important. And we have places in our Slack. See, I don't have Slack open here, do I? Oh, I do. Okay. Let's see. Let me share the Slack. So many steps. Okay. You guys are familiar with Slack. I think everybody that I'm looking at in this chat that I can see, you guys are all pretty good. I mean, I don't see, you said we had 27 in this group, but I only see 4 or 5 that are participating. So all of you people that are quietly in the background, say something. 31. Okay, if there's 31 of you, everybody needs to say hi. Just like do something. Wiggle a finger, something like that. There you go. But I mean, that's how you're gonna, okay, everybody learns a little bit different. So there they go. Some people learn by viewing, right? Visually. Some are through hearing. Some it is kinesthetically. You have to actually physically do it. Figure out what your learning style is, but in every mode, you still need to participate in some way. Even if you think what you're saying is dumb, get it out there. And to trade and to be a successful trader, you've got to have a thick skin and an iron constitution. So if you're a real wimpy person by nature, it's okay, but you can't be in here. So you're going to have to stretch your wings just a little bit. And if you need to do it privately, you guys, that's what I'm here for. You know, just message me, and because I get that a lot. People like, I'd like to post this, but I'm kind of afraid. Well, I'm not always gentle. I'm probably a little bit nicer than Jeff can be sometimes. But throw it out there so you can at least get some feedback, because how do you know what you don't know until you ask? I'm not sure what that is. PMP. Somebody's cat walked across their keyboard. Good. I'm glad you guys are listening. Yes. But in the Slack, so I was not familiar with Slack in the beginning, so I didn't, and there's still, there, you can go on YouTube and there's all kinds of tips and tricks. A couple of real quick things that I will share. Anytime that there's a post, if you would click this little guy right here that says start a thread, if you click here on a post, then everything that's responded to will stay in that post, and it helps so much to organize our thoughts, and we can follow a chain of conversation from its beginning rather than trying to search through like who's replying to what. So that's one thing that you can do, everybody can do, is just reply to a specific post. That way it stays subject wise, it stays concise. I don't always read everything that comes into all these, because some of these setups and stuff, I mean, I just don't, I'm not, they're above my pay grade. You know, I'm learning scalps and I have an H Momo trade. That's it. And I'm meeting my goals with that. And as I get better, I will expand my horizon. But I think that's something that, you know, depending on where you're at, you may come into this already having a good Bubba already established and you're wanting to grow, and that's fine. But for me, go ahead.
Oh, you're very perceptive. I literally just unmuted myself. I didn't realize I was even making noise. I just really wanted to emphasize what you said in the language that we've used it in the Slack and in the groups. What you've done is you've got a playbook with 2 setups in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're executing against and
Yep.
consistently making money. So I think that's a really, really good point. So I just wanted to emphasize that from the peanut gallery, and now I'll mute again.
So you don't have to have um, a handle on all of this stuff, you know. And I'll even go so much as to confess I love Lee and I love all the stuff he teaches, but it literally makes me kind of burp because I'm full. So I listen to it and then I'll make a note like, come back to this in 6 months because I know it's going to help me in the future. Yes.
The English food is very rich.
But
Notice how Lee isn't saying anything. It's totally
I
silent.
am simply shaking my head,
he's
Riley.
he's eating. I made him hungry. He's over
What
there
is
looking
that?
for.
The pudding with the what is it? Welsh pudding? What does that say? That's really that's it's good, but it's really rich.
We have a pudding called Spotted Dick.
It's funny, Dick. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Yeah, exactly. It's British. Of course you do.
So I don't feel like you have to learn all of this before you can pull a trigger. Um, Having said that, don't pull a trigger live. You know, you need to find your Bubba, and that really is just. It means that you have to find what works for you. So if you try a bunch of different things, I mean that's how you're going to figure it out. But when something clicks and you go, oh my gosh, I've been able to do that over the last 10 days every single time I've tried. Okay, that means it's your Bubba. Write it down, make a plan. Were you going to say something? I thought I heard you say pick it up again. But so that's what the Bubba is. It is finding, I call it, Goldilocks mode, where everything just feels easy. Like I can just walk by the computer and if my Bubba is there, it's like Bubba is here and there's a little arrow. And I'm just like, okay, I'll take 3 or 4 ticks out of the market right now. And then I can just go back to doing something else. That has only happened because I did tons of drills and I just it fit me. So you're going to find something that fits you. So is my Goldilocks when the price action makes perfect sense to me, right? So I noticed Jonathan was sharing this morning that he's using the LRC, right? And and he's like, wow, this is just like almost like taking candy from a baby, right? Well, okay, so now your little Bubba is starting to show up. Well, until it isn't, and then you figure out what the difference was. But that's why all those spreadsheets come in handy. I will take this down. Well, let me finish my thoughts here on Slack. This little guy helps us stay organized. And Jonathan, what was the other thing that we talked about the other day that was really important? Oh, the save. If you want to save something, you can click this little guy here, and that will yes. And then you have all your little saved things, right? Which is saved items. So you go there, and then everything you've ever saved is right here. See, I saved this because I'm actually going to use this, Lee. This was some good stuff. That's you can set your alerts to. You guys remind me where that is. There's a crap. Dude. There's a way to set your, where is it? Alerts. Click on the group name. Up here, this guy. Right. Thank you. Yes, notifications. So you can set your preferences and notifications either on your mobile or on here, so that if you want to be notified when there's anything that mentions your name, or if you want to be notified anytime anybody says anything. Or if you want to use do not disturb while you're trading, I can just ignore things. So those of us who are mothers tend to be able to ignore really well. Right, Maria? So anyway, that is the big thing in Slack. There's a lot of other cool features. It's actually a very powerful app. So take a little time on a weekend and, you know, dig into Slack, but more important than anything, participate. We do have a couple of channels over here where you can post questions or thoughts about drills, results. You know, I am a beat a dead horse when it comes to doing the drills, so I have a certain way that I like to do them that taught me a lot, and so I like to share those results, because it's one thing for someone to say it works, it's another thing for you to see it every single day working. And if you guys are getting tired of me posting that, just tell me and I'll stop, because it's not much to brag about. It's $100 a day or whatever, but for me, it's huge. If I could do that every single day for a year, then all I have to do is do it with 2 contracts and then 5. And I can still, some days I'm done in 5 minutes. What kind of job can you do where you're done in 5 minutes a day? Then anyway, it's a, there's a freedom to that then once you've accomplished that, then you can start looking at, well, I have time now to listen to the deep dive in Delta and maybe understand some of it and put it to work and add a new Bubba to my arsenal. And that's how I do that. But first and foremost, you have to have a Bubba, and you have to have something that actually makes you money consistently. So the next step, let me go back to my new share. Great, we can go to this. This is how I felt when I first started with Jeff, because I knew what a DOM was, because I had been trading the ES for a year, and so I knew how to place an order, I knew how to close a trade, but I was trading off the charts, right? So the movement of the order flow going up and down didn't communicate anything to me. I knew what it was, but I didn't understand what it was saying. I had to read the charts, and I always used a 3-minute chart. I just did. That was my thing. Sometimes if it was moving fast, I'd go down to a 1 minute. But when he first started saying, do 20-second charts, I thought, are you fucking crazy? How can you trade off a 20-second chart? Did I say 20-minute? 20-second chart, 15-second chart. But I have learned that is, I don't think I've ever, maybe once a week, I look at a 5-minute chart or a 15-minute chart, something for bigger context, because I'm like, okay, where are we in the bigger scheme of things? But yeah, I don't even use the charts anymore. It's been kind of funny because I'll just watch the DOM. That's been partly a product of me trying to use as little data as possible, so I don't have to have 15 charts up to look at all different time frames. And it's partly just because I can accomplish my goal just with a DOM up. So my feeling was like this: drinking from a fire hose. That's exactly how I felt. So that's why I had to make this more granular. So I would be able to, that old saying, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. And that's how it has worked for me. Okay, so some high level, kind of get your notebook out. This is important. Watch the videos. Take meaningful notes. In other words, don't just write everything down. When you hear something, you go, I've never heard that before, I don't understand it. Write that down and ask go to Slack and ask, what does this mean? I heard this in, you know, the video, and it could be something that we've grown from, or we've added to, or has changed completely, or maybe it just needs to be explained a little bit further. And yeah, if you can give a timestamp, that's helpful. And you guys send me that stuff, because we're gonna build out the website a little bit so that it's easy to find specific things, so you can go back and rewatch it. Which I tell you, you can learn that stuff, and then 6 months later go back to it, and it'll give you all new stuff that you were like, you know what, that didn't make sense then, and I let it kind of go in one ear and out the other, but now I know what that means and I can use it. Or it'll give you confidence, because you'll get some confirmation that, hey, I'm not as dumb as I was 6 months ago. I've learned that. The choose one thing, I think that comes from the whole drinking from the fire hose. Stand back and really figure out what one thing that you need to work on right now, maybe for 2 weeks, maybe for 2 months, that you need to really get your arms around and get really good at. Keep exposing yourself to additional information, but really work on that one thing. So choose the one thing, keep exposing yourself, not literally, but figuratively, to the information, because I know what Lee's thinking right now. I'm going to expose myself. Then practice, do the drills, drill it into your head. The dirty Brits, I know. There is something, I mean, I heard Jeff say it so many times, and I was just like, all right, already, I'll do some damn drills. And it really won't take you long, but the point of doing drills isn't to do 6 of them. And I mean, that's not a drill. That's 6 trades. Do 60 and then show me what and then figure out statistically, where half the times were you upside down. Okay, well then that means you're not really learning anything. So you gotta, it's not your Bubba yet. You've got to find something that gives you an edge, right? So it's got to be at least better than 50-50. 10,000 times one kick. That is, and I literally have tracked almost all of my trades, because sometimes I just get in there and do 100, and I'm just practicing, right? I'm sharpening my skill or whatever. I'm bored. I'm trying a new thing. But in the beginning, I would either do 100 trades at a time, or I would do it for a certain period of time. I would always have something in mind for that session or that drill or that day that I was trying to obtain, right? So when I was drilling, how often and what times a day? All the time, because I was trying to figure out what worked for me, right? So when Jeff says, or Lee says, spend some time watching the market. Well, you can just sit and watch it like a movie, and that's fine, because you can learn stuff that way. But I find if I'm trading it and I'm taking notes, especially I'm going to track all those trades and share it with other people that are going to say, the fuck were you thinking when you did that? I got to explain that. So it makes you engage yourself in a little more proactive. You're turning your homework in. So it makes it more impactful, and you'll learn from it better. So yeah, I trade when I'm doing drills pre-market, and I'll make note of that, right? I try to keep my time stamps. Oh, let me go get my, I have 2 trade journal templates, one for Sierra charts and one for NinjaTrader, because they have a little different way of exporting the data. But did I share this? I forget to do this. New share. Trade journal. Okay, sorry. There. You guys see my Excel spreadsheet?
Yep.
Okay. So I have a template, and I've shared this on in the Slack a couple of times, and I'm happy to share it again. But you guys can come up with something yourself. There's a couple of things that I want to note. I want to know how many trades I'm doing. I want to know what my strategy was. This stuff gets recorded automatically, entry and exit price. But this for me is important. I want to know how long I was in the trade, right? So I'll make a note of how long it took me to meet my goal, right? So I did 13 trades in about 10 minutes, and my net was $311. And then I have some overall notes for that what I call a session. And so I know that I'm using that word in a different kind of way. For me, that just means if I'm going to sit down and do something on purpose for a period of time, that's a session. So that session might be today's trades, or it might be the pre-market trades, and then I quit for a while. I got to go feed the horses, or I got to, wash my hair, whatever. And then it might be I trade the open. So maybe that first hour I'm trading. It might be a late morning session. It might be, so I did that, and I made note of all of those things. So I would go certain times of the day. I don't know, for me, my experience hasn't necessarily been times of the day. What I can tell you is when I sit down and I can watch the DOM, what happens in front of me, I can recognize now I guess the best way to describe it is the rhythm and the tempo. So whether it is marching in one direction with very little pullbacks, it doesn't have to be fast. The tempo could be slow, but it's very clearly going one way, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 1 step back, and it kind of goes like that. Or if it is just kind of churning and it's going up a couple and down a couple and up a couple and down, and it's not really going anywhere, I can see that right away, and I know, hey, I need to sit down and trade this because that's going to fit my style, my Bubba, really good. Or, it's just it's not going to work for me, so I can come back later. That's what the drills kind of helped me with, is just recognizing the Jeff helped me out with I don't have the vocabulary for it, the price action or the.
Yeah, that's definitely price action. What I refer to as ebb and flow or HMOMO. You described and very accurately, and this is a really good point for new people to understand, that high momentum can move slowly. It's the question is how strongly is it going one way or the other, and that's a really good distinction. There's a lot of different styles of trading. So no, I think you've encapsulated. That's price action, and for me, it's always ebb and flow, HMOMO, or price discovery. But I think everybody should kind of organize it in their heads, whatever way it works for them. Yeah.
Because we have different languages, right? So how you're learning this in English, you may be then translating it while you're trading. I'm assuming you're thinking in your native language, so you're going to have it's going to be a little different. But make the note, that Blink book is really good. I tell you, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's why he can't say, well, it's when it does this, and this, because it's when I was training horses, one of the hardest things to teach is what we call feel. And that is the connection between your seat and your leg aids and your hands and your weight aids. So how the horse pushes against you, or when you're maybe squeezing the rein, almost like an orange, you're taking a feel on the horse's mouth. Does he resist that, or does he give to that? Does he give too much? And then that's a feel. And that's the same thing that goes on in the market. It's a feel. And until you have felt a lot of different things, you aren't going to be able to describe it in your head. And sometimes it's not even something you can put words to. You just go, it feels like putting on a glove or a pair of jeans that fit. And when that happens, you almost can do no wrong trading. I've had days where I didn't even think about it. I did my trades, I post my results, and people are like, my God, the MAE is off. I had zeros. Not one trade went against me, not one tick. Whoa, that's pretty cool. But that's because I put my hand in a glove that fit just perfect at that moment in time. The more you can recognize when it's not that way and you stop trading, or you stop trading that setup or that bubba. And for me, I only have 2 setups. So I've got, go ahead.
Oh, that's what it is. It's when I unclick mute, that's making the noise. Okay. Because I'm muted because I'm
I'm
drinking
just
coffee.
that tuned into you, Jeff.
Yes. That's just a really, really good point right there. Too many newer traders, and this is really focused at newer traders, understanding when you're not, and what you're describing, Amy, is flow. You're in a
Okay.
flow state. A perfect word for it. And when you're just reading what's going on, even if you're not trading it, you can be in a flow state. And that's so key. As I have said before, I get in a non-flow state and make really stupid mistakes and lose money. So you're absolutely right. And did you catch that question just before we get too far away from it about how you get this data in? Do you just cut and paste, or do you have a
Okay, so
file?
in NinjaTrader, you are just going to export, and you go to the trades. It's not the, I don't have that up right now, but I can put it like step by step.
Yeah, you don't have to tell them how to do it right now. I guess the question was if you have it automatically linked. There are
No,
ways to do that, but
there are, and I haven't gotten that fancy because it's not. There's only so many columns that it pulls over, and then I just take out the ones that I don't need, so that I like to save this as a PDF, so that it's easy for people to share and see, and it's just more readable. And so I export in Ninja. In Sierra Charts, you save as a text file, and then you have to copy and paste and stick it in. So it's kind of a 2-step process. I have a Sierra Charts template here. Let's see. There. So what I do is I'll throw the trades into this here, and then I have set up the template so that I've got this. These are the columns that I want to keep, and then when I throw all of the data in here, I can just, like, I don't care about the efficiency. I don't care about the flat to flat. What I want is just this information, because my biggest goal with the drills and with my daily trades is obviously my P&L, right? I want to meet my daily goal of 100, 115 bucks, whatever it is. And I don't want ever my max MAE, depends on the type of trades that I'm doing, but I try to keep that under 5 to 8 ticks. And I really want this average MAE to be under 50 if I'm doing 1 tick drills. So that just means I'm not ever letting myself get exposed to a potential loss, because they can always just keep going against you. And if you let it get $200 against you, and then it keeps going, well, you might get out at 250, but then again, it might be 500. You might hit your max loss for the day. Why would you do that? Because it takes you 5 days to make up that. So those are 2 metrics that I watch very closely, are the max MAE and the average. I keep that. And then I try to keep track of how long did it take me to do this. And that's just for, over a course of a year. I have learned that for me, once I've hit my goal, whatever that is, 100, 200, 500, if I trade more than that, and it's probably psychological, Jeff and Lee can probably speak to this with 25, 30 years of experience. once you kind of hit your goal, if you keep trading, you're almost always gonna either lose or you're gonna end the day right where you were anyway. So the sooner I can hit my goal, the sooner I can quit.
My experience is identical. If I'm in the groove, like you were talking about, where I'm just flowing, it's hard to do anything wrong. But if I'm making mistakes, and I don't have a limit where either our trader turns me off, or part of the reason is because I can afford to. I will keep just throwing it away. Like one day, I $600 in micros. I mean, these are like $8 and $10. I'm like, there's times when we just get stupid. So yes, that's a really good. And as a newbie, to learn that now and have that burn, that will keep you from blowing stuff. Curious, Lee, what your experience is. You're a little more deliberate than me.
Much the same, Jeff. Sierra Chart has a profit and loss manager like our trader, and I think it's important to have a virtual risk manager looking over your shoulder to try to break the cycle of the dumb organic matter sitting in front of the screen when it goes wrong.
I like the way you put that. Yes.
Humans,
we can be really stupid. It's mind-boggling. And I would go further to say time makes you more aware of it and less likely to do it. But listen up, everybody. It doesn't go away after 47 years. I still do it. Oh, and your dog says, me too.
Yeah, come here, Trin. What are you doing?
No, he's agreeing. So he's a smart dog. Give him a treat. Give her a treat.
She gets filet mignon, and come on, she doesn't need treats. You're fat, aren't you? Anyway, she's like, I'm well-rounded. I'm in shape. Round is a shape. So, yeah, I haven't tested this theory because I made a decision at the beginning of this year that I would, it sounds kind of pathetic, but I would lower my expectations to a bar that I know I can step over easily, because I have other stresses in my life. My husband's on deployment. We've got this stupid pandemic going on. So if I can make this so that, nothing in the market is ever easy, and to do anything consistently is not easy. So if I can do that for a year, then I will allow myself to stretch a little bit. Not that I don't take bigger trades. This is Monday or Tuesday. What is today? Today's Thursday. So this Thursday. Was 2 days ago. My goal is I think this was the Combine account. So I actually made too much for that. So now I'm probably gonna screw myself and I have to make more for the rest of the Combine. But there was just a trade set up that, I took a couple of one tick trades. One was good, one wasn't, one was good. And then it was that Goldilocks moment where I was like, you know what? I need to switch from my one tick because this is going to give me more. And I can just, it's just sitting there. It's like that low hanging fruit that's smacking you in the face. So I just took the trade because I had absolute confidence that it was going to work out, and it did. So, and then I quit, and I was like, well, I could have done 15 one ticks and probably still made my daily goal, or I could just take what the market was saying. Here, I'll give you a bonus today. And okay, force me to take it. Those days happen, and they happen with pretty regular. I'd say once or twice a week. If you're in the market enough, they will, if you get your entries right. What was it you were saying? Oh, it might have been a video I was watching of you. You're in my head too much, Jeff. That getting your entries right will, all trades are a scalp until proven otherwise. And that is so true. And it's not that you're just going in with the mindset that I'm going to take one tick. For me, I'm doing the one tick drill because it is the highest probability, most likely trade I can take. And I know I can take 15 of those damn things a day. And it might take all day or it might take 5 minutes, but I'm confident now that I can do it. So if I get those right, just by being in the market 15 times a day, getting 15 good entries, that gives me a really high probability of catching some pretty good swing trades. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Perfect. Well, the only thing that I've ever said, I think that I added to that was, I think that applies in all business decisions. With real estate, you make money by successfully buying it,
100%, 100%.
not by where you sell it. And so you get your entries right is critical thinking. And I think so much of the Furu world has this, you have to be patient in your trade. Yeah, and that's just such nonsense. And you really adapted to that. But the thing that I love about this particular example here is this is a real newbie's way of understanding how you can't have a target in your trade. Like you said, you got into those last couple and you knew there was more there by the read you had. And so you adjusted your expectations accordingly, and you did it with discretion as you were trading. And that's the skill that you've learned. And that's a really good example of it, because there's times you get a tick, there's times you lose the tick or two, and then there's times you just say boom, and you've got 4 points. So good examples, great stuff.
So 2 questions I see in here. One from Joey: would I consider live trade for 30 minutes? Oh, like right now? Okay, here's the problem. I'm on my hotspot. So for me to open up and stream data and be live video.
Could you record, Amy? Is that an option?
I could do that. As a matter of fact, man, I didn't record that one that David and I did, but I will.
That's great. Not pressure on you or anything. That's just really cool. It would be fun.
Yeah, I do it different than you guys, but
hey, that's cool.
Just my
Did you
thing.
see Bob's question? I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yes, I'm gonna get down to that one.
Okay, good.
Do I imagine changing at some point to try? Okay, so this is a very good question, and I don't know the answer. I would have to take probably 6 months or a year because you can't really back test these things. What is the statistical difference between being able to consistently get 1 tick versus getting 2 ticks?
I know I can answer that in a heartbeat.
Okay.
It's so instrument and time of day dependent. If you do it at the right times, you can consistently go in looking for 2 ticks or 5 ticks or whatever it is. But it kind of defeats the point. Again, the idea is to get the market, the read of the next thing that's going to happen right. And a lot of times, if you're trying to get 2 ticks or 3 ticks, 1 will be there, and then you'll hold out for 2 or 3, and the trade will go against you. So it's real important to understand the question you're asking. And I'm going to throw that back at Bob. It's not about what you're getting. It's about reading the action right. That's really an important point.
Yeah, because I took the tick drill on in its purity. I really just want 1 tick. And if I'm just looking, this is my train of thought, and Lee and Jeff, you guys can jump all over me if my thinking is wrong.
So far, good.
When I'm looking at the LRCs, because I remember I was chart dependent heavily in the beginning, but it gave me what I call training wheels. It gave me a statistical advantage that when the fast and the slower LRCs came together, the statistics say 96% of the time they're going to stay within those bounds. So I know that if, in addition to where they line up together, and you guys need to listen to this, you don't just take a trade there, because which way are you going to take the trade? Always to the inside? Not necessarily. It depends on what happens there. So if we've got that nice marching tempo and we have H Momo right up to it, and then there's a pause, I'm pulling the trigger on it to come the other way, because I have a 96% chance I'm going to get 1 tick back. And that is the majority of my trades. Now, 4% of the time it's going to go the other way, but it doesn't go all that far most of the time. I like numbers, but not this much. How many times does it go outside of the LRCs and then come back? You know, probably closer to 99% of that. I don't know. But that was where I started, and I tested that theory, and I did thousands, if not tens of thousands of one tick drills to figure out how consistent I could be just with that very, very, very specific bubba. And I have found it to be incredibly consistent. And then these kind of trades happen frequently.
That's a huge point. This is such a great point. I'm going to emphasize it again from my point of view as a teacher, and not with you. I mean, I'm seeing the result here, but I wasn't working with you one-on-one. But I have worked with people on this one-on-one, and also just the workshop last year. And here's an answer to a lot of the questions I'm seeing here that's the same answer. Let's say you get to that point where you're at 96%. Your odds are overwhelming. It's going to come back the other way. But the art is how far it's going to come back. And
yeah,
you can always get a tick, but it's when you get greedy. And I love the way Darren used to put this. I don't see, no, Darren's not here, but the way Darren describes it, he's done a lot of drills too, is he says, my eyes get bigger than my stomach.
yeah.
And it's so true, because you see the potential in the range, and the trick is, you know what, screw that. Just take the profit, and
Yeah.
every now and then you'll just get on the right side and you'll say, you know what, I can give it a little more room. But that's experience. That's a year of you doing it, Amy.
Yeah.
That's, that takes time to learn. Now it's a blink for you. And that's the answer.
And so the answer to Bob's question, changing to a consistent 2 ticks, that would not be in my future, and I'll tell you
what's
why.
a better answer than that? And I'm sorry I interrupted you. Then I want to hear your answer. But a better way to do that, if you're truly a scalper's mentality, is to increase the size and still go for 1 tick.
100,000%.
Yes.
So I said from the beginning that I'm changing my license plate to add a 0, because what if I do this for a whole year and I look back and over 100,000 trades, I can do 900,997 of them successfully 1 tick. Why the hell would I do anything else but add a contract? And I just doubled what I made, or add 10 contracts. And I don't, instead of making $100 a day, I just made $1,000 a day. Bam, doing the exact same thing. I don't have to change anything. Now, if it took me 8 hours a day to do and it was really hard, okay, I would be looking for a new bubba. But this is one little bubba that for now, and markets can change. I can tell you this didn't work quite so well for me when the markets were really hairy in March. I was very consistent in January, February. As a matter of fact, by the end of February, I would, what I did, Bob, is instead of trying to go for 2 ticks, because that drops my statistical advantage more than 50%. I bet it's way more difficult to get 2 ticks as often as you can get 1 tick. Because all I'm trying to do is that one little move against me, and I just need the right kind of volatility and the right kind of ebb and flow, and I've just learned how to see it. I do 2 contracts for 1 tick, and then I add a 3rd contract that I do something like at 4 ticks, I have an automatic break even +1. So then no matter what, if it goes 4 ticks in my favor, I'm still getting that 3rd contract for 1 tick, which was my minimum goal. But I'm leaving myself open for it to be a bigger trade. And then I can trail my stop. So if it's like, for instance, the open 5, I don't do 1 tick drills. I do what I call my HMOMO trade, which is it comes to break even +1 at 4 or 5 ticks. And then if it keeps running, I just, follow it along or hit flat when you have to have in mind your target, and that's in your order flow. Maybe there's a high volume node that it's going toward. Okay, so when it gets there, if it pauses, I take my profit. I don't care if it pauses and keeps going. I'm going to take profits because Jeff has beaten into me. We have 3 rules, and one of them is always take profits. So I got my 2 ticks in the beginning, and now I just got 8 more ticks. I'm done. I'm okay with that. I don't care if it goes 50 more ticks. I got what I needed. Rinse and repeat. I'll get better and I'll add more contracts, but that's rather than trying to get more, squeeze more out of the trade, I'm just going to get bigger size. And you can only do that when you have confidence. And you can only have confidence if you have experience. That's why you do the drills. 100% right. Well, and then you also, if you're good at some of the stuff that Lee teaches is just so great. And who was it? Dimitri, that was kind of like taking the opposite argument about the drills on a thread that we were doing a week or so ago. And he's right. There's different ways of looking at it, but you still got to get your entry. If you can get your entry perfected where you don't experience, you don't have to give it, quote, room. You're always right all the time. You're getting in there and it goes your way. Get that stop in between. You're golden, you know? Yep. Mode, wait. And I think the difference, and I'm not there yet, again, above my pay grade. When, like Jeff, when you're trading around or in a range, you're doing this exact same thing, only you're not taking your profit at 1 tick. You're adding to the trade. I've done that a few times. Most of the times it works out because I've picked my entry well, and even if it goes a few ticks against me, my question then becomes, if I didn't have a position on right now, would I take this trade? If it's yes, I'll add to the position. If it's no, I get out. So Anita asked me, the market can just spring up or down on these edges. I can't see consistency on these spots with a 1 tick drill. What is my vision? Well,
Order flow is your vision.
I was just going to be a bitch and say, have you done 10,000 of those yet?
Yeah.
It's
astounding. People just continually over and over again discount how much practice this takes to get good at. And compare it to any good video game or any hand-eye coordination task or any sport that any of you have played: basketball, soccer, baseball, tennis, badminton. Do you just walk out there and I got this? No. Yeah. Or playing the piano or playing chess. Anything that's reasonably complex takes a lot of practice. And it's
yet
astounding.
There are people that can do it and it looks magic when they do it. Well, it's because they've got skill. I mean, there's a certain amount of skill that it does take. It's not for everybody, but skill alone doesn't do it. It's the hand-eye coordination and the practice. So Anita says that's not her question. So, okay, I misunderstood.
I think let me take a shot at your question, Anita, and then I'll throw it back at Amy. It can just spring up or down at these edges. Yes, it can. And the trick to consistently getting that right is the read on the order flow. And drills get you good at that, but there's a lot of variable conditions to it too. And this entire way of thinking is new to you since you joined us February or March. And, it's literally only 2 months. So the only thing I can say is you've got to give that time. Even the difference for me, even when it's at an edge, when there's a ledge setup, which I tell you guys is a 99%, it's going to break the direction of the ledge. I could tell you that, and 3/4 of the people in the room would lose money trying to execute against it, because you still have to read the literally the movement from one price level to the next right to play it. Learning to see it is only the first step. Then learning how to execute against it, and that also comes down to what kind of a setup you're doing. If you're trying to scalp for one tick at a ledge breakout or a range breakout, you have to be ruthless about your entry. And Amy's making that point, and I'm just going to emphasize it for her. You know, if you get the entry right, you'll get 1 or 5 ticks instantly. If you get the entry wrong, you'll get teased into it with all the other suckers, and then it'll go against you. And it feels different. It really does.
It does feel different. And I think, boy, it's all about watching it get to that edge. So if I am just pulling up a chair and opening up the market and it's kind of at that area, I'm not doing any, I'm not going to take a trade. I'm going to let it play out, and I'm going to miss the trade probably. Yeah, the energy. So it's about it's the ebb and flow. But when I think of ebb and flow, I feel, well, this is hard to describe. You guys need to read Blink, and if you haven't, it will help you, because it sounds like we're evading the question. It's not that. There is a distinct, if you had a metronome in front of you and you could match it to the market at any given time, you will see that for periods of time, it might be 50 seconds, it might be 2 minutes, it might be what, but for a period of time, what about 80% of the time, it can be fairly predictable. That doesn't mean you can predict it, but it gets into a groove. And when I see a specific groove that fits my niche, my Bubba, it's something like it moves 2 to 3 ticks in one direction, and then it comes back a tick or 2. And it moves 2 or 3 ticks, and then it comes back. And when I see that over 3 and 4 kind of waves of it, I'm pretty confident as that approaches one of these edges of the LRCs that I'm able to step in front of it or behind it, whichever direction I feel like and I'm watching, I'm learning to watch the power meter, the delta meter. I don't want it to be overwhelmingly in one way or the other for my tick drills. I want it to be a steady kind of ebb and flow that I can kind of just step into and get that 1 tick. I just need 1 tick. So if I take a couple of trades and it does that, but it doesn't fill, because that happens sometimes, then you know what, I just step out, because there's just not quite enough volume, or there's not, you know, it's like fishing, you know, you get your bait right in front of it, it's nibbling, but it walks away, you know, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go to a different spot. So imbalances in delta, for me, that's information overload, to be honest with you. I'm learning how to kind of take that into consideration. For me, if I have enough time in a trade to be paying attention to more information, then I'm probably going to be taking like an H-Momo trade. I'm not trying to do a 1 tick, because really, you could take everything away from me now and show me a DOM and take the numbers away, and I can do my 1 tick drills. So Wayne asks me, oh, he's leaving early. Okay, dad duty. Go ahead. Thanks. Thanks for joining. Thanks for visiting. All right. Anita, you wait and feel the market is doing this reasonably good answer. Okay. Yeah, because it definitely is a feel thing, and for everybody it's different. You might like a faster move. You know what I mean? My hand-eye coordination just works best with that particular. If I see it going 1 2 1 2 1 2, then I'm like, I don't want in there. I don't care how fast or slow it is. It's not gonna suit me. And almost every single day, the market will give me that 2 or 3 times in a day, a period of time. And we can go back over my, logs. most of the time I'm getting 15 to 20 one-tick drills in less than 30 minutes, in one 30-minute period, in other words. A lot of times it's a lot quicker than that, but that's because I'm able to just decisively take the trade. Okay, then that last one didn't feel so quick, so maybe I need to stand aside. You know, if you try to force it, I see some people doing drills and they're letting the trade go way against them, 2-3 points. I'm like, okay, your tick drill went out the window long time ago. You need to pull the Band-Aid off.
That was also a great comment people probably missed about watching how long it takes to get your fills. That's one of the, it's above most people's pay grade, but it's what you want to aspire to. I can't tell you how often that has saved my neck, and I can't tell you when I do it. If I've got a target limit order in there and I'm watching, even just going to break even from one tick sometimes is a decision that saves me $100.
Yeah.
So that's great
the
stuff.
market's a funny thing because sometimes it'll just kind of sit there, and if it sits there for very long and doesn't come back to you, it's probably going to go the other way. I mean, odds are it's not coming back to you, so just take it. And so what if it's a 3-tick loss? That's 3 trades you can make up it real quick. So do I find my targets no, lately, because that's the only way you can look at this, is the market of recent. I don't know whose feedback that is, but there's.
I think I fixed it. Somebody wasn't muted.
Okay. And Jeff and Lee are better at, because they've got many more years of experience than I do, but I it's a little bit day by day. I will say in the last couple of weeks, I've had a lot of that nice ebb and flow for me pre-market around 8:30 to 9 East Coast time. It's kind of building some momentum for the day. The volume is kind of coming in, but it's not overwhelming yet. So it just, that particular tempo or whatever, it works for this real well, or has here recently. When things were super volatile, it was more like late morning when things kind of settled down and it seemed like everybody kind of took a breath. Then I would find a period of time where it was calmer, that I could take the trade. But you have to bear in mind, something that I've noticed in the last couple of months is I'll have 5 or 6, and it's almost always 5 or 6 days where everything is just really orderly and easy for me. And then that 6th or 7th day, something's different. And it's either just a little chaotic, if there's price discovery going on, there's something, doesn't have to do necessarily with news or anything. It's just like the cycle of that 80% of the time that we're generally rangy, and outside of that we're something else. And I've just noticed that really clearly in the last, 30 days. Have you guys experienced that? Guess not. Matthew asks, so when you become more advanced in one tick, do you still wait for what LRC would define as edge of range to execute, or just whenever the ebb and flow patterns are? So I will say that I always kind of I get my context from the LRC. I still leave my 20-second chart up. And right now I've got a 5-minute chart and the 20-second chart. And so the 5 minutes, just for a little more context, as far as, we're not having days so much where we've got, 100-point move pre-market and that sort of thing. So it helps me to stay a little more disciplined, because I do get tempted to be in the middle sometimes. and I go, you know what, if the LRCs are going in different directions, or if they are not, if it's a real discrepancy, I try to sit on my hands, even if the order flow is looking good to me, because that to me is just a little suspicious. I don't have my my Bubba, which says when the LRCs come together, then take my trades. So, but yeah, I mean, if I don't look at a chart at all and I'm just looking at order flow, then it doesn't matter. I'm just looking at order flow, and I can take the trades, there. But it has to be really orderly and very steady for me to, and what I found is in situations like, let's just say it's bouncing off the low and it's heading up to the high, and I've taken my trade off the low, but it's marching, I might take 10 trades in a row right from the lower LRC to the uppers. And then I might turn around and go short and go right back down. Some days are just like that. But it's 100% dependent on that order flow at that moment. The LRCs are just guidelines. Every day has its own individual pattern. I don't know. Every section of the day has its own pattern. I'm only concerning myself with the pattern that's in front of me when I'm getting ready to trade. Go ahead, I can hear you breathing, Jeff.
That's a real good suggestion, particularly for you, David, because discipline is important for you to acquire, and that's a way to do it. Don't worry about what happens all day. Find one part of the day that you can game the action and where your results are consistent. Get in, execute against it, take some money out of the market, and go do something else for the rest of the day. That's great advice coming from Amy. It's good experience.
So, all right, let me see if I can finish my actual PowerPoint here. So, yeah, we went right up to here, measure improvement. So, all of those Excel spreadsheets aren't just for me to, like keep track of my bank account or whatever. I want to know that I'm just getting better. The hardest thing for me to ever, I've heard a lot of good traders say, don't look at your P&L, only look at it. That's so hard to do, because what are we doing this for but to make money, right? So it's important, but there's something psychological when I have tracked it and I know I've met it, and I'm literally just looking for the number 15. I'm looking for 15 ticks, right? So, because I know if I do that, my P&L will be fine. It's exactly where I expect it to be, and I know that I can take a deposit, every 2 weeks or every 9 days or whatever it is. And then what I concern myself with is getting better. So now I've gotten consistent. It's only been 4 or 5 months, but I've got that so much. Now I can get better. So what is better? Well, I can feel free to take those HMOMO trades when they are handed to me. I feel very confident that I'm seeing it correctly. I know I can get my entry, so why leave it just for 1 tick? I will move my stop to 1 tick and then see if I can get 3 or 5 or 10, but only after I've been able to go 4 months with getting 1 tick every single time I go in there. Does that make sense? So that's the point of measuring the improvements. Then, yeah, the book list. If you guys don't know, in the Slack, there is a chart, or a channel that is our book list. Read, because this stuff is stuff that Jeff read and was impactful, because he's probably read 100 more books that weren't so much. Maybe there was a nugget here and there, but when he's putting something out there that says this has made a difference in my understanding and has made me a better trader, you bet your ass I'm going to read it. Now, some of it is really advanced stuff that I don't always understand yet, but I know that if it's in my head, then when that old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, I will go, you know what, I've heard that before, and that's what it means. and now I understand. And so now I can go back to it and apply it and see if I can make my trading better, if that makes sense. So if it's overwhelming at first, don't worry about it. Just that you might be up here, taking your notes, working on your one thing. David, this is important for you. Just keep rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And over time, you're going to see the improvements, and you have to have the time. There is no substitute. There's no amount of reading or learning or anything Jeff or Lee can teach you or tell you that's going to substitute for your own results and that hard data that you can see. For the month of April, I improved this much over the month of May or over the month of March. And then, yeah, the extra stuff, reading, that's, because you can't do this stuff 24/7. You got to do something else. So back to the beginning, back to the future. The most important thing, participation. Be an active part of the Slack community. Make sure that you come to the live sessions as many times as you can. Make sure you're on time. Ask relevant questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to get yelled at. We all do. It's a, kind of a, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a phrase. It's like
rite of passage.
Yes. It's a badge of honor when Jeff calls you out. Because those are the times that you will remember whatever it was. And you'll learn from it, and it'll make you a better person or better trader anyway. Share. Put your stuff out there, and even if it's awful, it's okay. We've all had those, and trust me, we've all had some really ugly, ugly things. And if you don't believe it, just ask us, because I have documented bad days too. Thankfully, I learned from them, and I backed my expectations of myself down, because then I wasn't leaving myself open to having so many bad days. Now I almost keep the door completely shut. Like, bad days aren't allowed to happen. I feel them in the beginning of the day, and I just don't trade. So give and receive feedback. So you have to be able to take the feedback, even if it's wrong. Sometimes people will say stuff and you just like, I know that's not good information. What happens in our group, if feedback is given that is not exactly kosher, promise you, Jeff and Lee will step right in there and set things straight. And you just have to have a thick skin and be able to take it, because there might be maybe it just needs to be explained a different way, and that sort of thing. But always ask questions and make sure that you are open to being criticized. Is the bad word because we take it so negatively, but I want you to pick apart things that I say, because I want to make sure that I'm A, understanding it correctly myself, and B, that I'm able to disseminate that information as good or better than I had received it. So anyway, if there's any questions or comments from the peanut gallery. Lee, you have been really quiet.
I'm drinking from the fire hose, Amy.
Now you know how I feel all the time.
Well, I'll jump in. Excellent presentation, Amy. Great job. I think for the new people, and even for not the new people, it was great material.
Yeah, I'll shut up, shall I? I think it's really good for people to, a real person's real world approach around this journey and material.
Yeah.
As opposed to Lee and I, who we're fake people.
I was just thinking the same thing. Like, because you're just talking heads, bobbleheads or whatever, and you're not real.
Jeff's a figment of his own imagination.
Yeah. That I am. And a hologram at the same time.
I've met Jeff in person, so he is actually a real person. I don't know about Lee, though, with the fake British accent over there. Oh. They're all bots, yeah. Sophisticated AI, wouldn't that be cool? one of these days. What was the show that I was watching recently? Oh, it was Devs. Has anybody watched that? Yeah, Westworld. That's a whole nother, but Devs, where they are like creating an algorithm that can predict anything. Devs, Devs. I think it's on Hulu. I did not like the ending. It was very anticlimactic.
That's incredibly feasible, by the way. I haven't seen that show, but the idea of algorithms being able to basically, you know, do anything is more likely than us mastering something simply because they learn from mistakes better than humans do.
Yes, and that's exactly what they created. They created this thing that first could go back in history just by, feeding it data, right? If it had enough data, they were able to view the crucifixion. They were able to view Cleopatra. They were everything because they just put all the data in. Of course, it's only as good as the data that goes in, right? But then based on that, the algorithms were able to then project forward. So even you and me, what we're going to say next, but they could only predict so many seconds or minutes into the future because there were then too many, alternatives.
Too many variables. That's why you always want to trade the shortest time frame for your entry.
I thought about that when I was watching. I was like, boy, is that not exactly what we're doing? Because we can predict. I know I can almost predict 9 times out of 10 that one tick. I can't always. I'd say it's flipped. I would have to say the 2 ticks was probably 1 out of 10 times you can get. I don't know, but it's not anywhere near as predictive. So when if you're doing a tick drill and you're trying to get a point or 2 points, it's not going to work so well. But anyway, so yeah, I hope that was helpful to you guys. From this, any more feedback that you want to put in the Slack, I want to hear, public or private, I don't care. My skin is very thick, and there's nothing you can criticize me on that I haven't already beaten myself up. I might just find a better way to do it if you help me. And we're going to disseminate some of this, I think, into a little shorter version of something that's going to be helpful because this thing is really, I have to tell you, I feel very blessed to be part of this. I have started a lot of businesses in my life, and some have been fairly successful, but none have just kind of taken on a life of their own like this. And so that's really, really cool.
I love that's happened too. Lee and I are both really excited because that was kind of the mission, and we've been allowing it to organically grow and letting people kind of do their thing, and everyone's just stepped up just tremendously, and you're the prime example of that, Amy. So thank you again very much. I hear Lee. I'm going to mute myself, and I have to go do something personal, so I'm going to just listen from this point forward.
No, I agree wholeheartedly with Jeff. We had a sense, an inkling, if you will, in English, that there's the makings of something good, and it seems to have found that nucleus, which is great. And once everybody starts using the new referral facilities and and putting testimonials on the website, it'll only get better with more like-minded people. So that's great. So look, I'm whizzing up and down the comments, and it doesn't look like we've got anything unaddressed.
One quick reminder, before I go away, tomorrow morning, NFP, we're doing live starting at 5 a.m. my time. That's 8 o'clock Eastern. Non-farm payrolls numbers come out. It should be, if nothing else, you will witness price discovery live.
Sure. And that's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's the second NFP since coronavirus effects has kicked in.
Yep. And, there's people that are projecting all kinds of crazy big numbers. I never try to make trades off of what might or might not come out of the numbers. But think about this one. If this surprises to the downside, the number's much lower than ever, the market could easily skyrocket, 5% up. On the other hand, if it comes in, expected, then, probably more of the same. If it comes in really worse, and I was having this conversation with one of my mentors yesterday, just what would worse look like?
Right.
So put your mind through that exercise, and
50 million unemployed.
yeah, I mean, what if it just so far out of the park, that could be a catalyst for just a devastating sell-off. A million things could happen. So if nothing else, it will be interesting. All right, I'm going back to mute. Thank you again, Amy.
Well, just before you mute yourself, Jeff,
Yes.
David's
Yes.
asked a good question. I think I know the answer, but could we do one video on chart to dome with the new volatility, or is that redundant?
It's totally redundant because they adapt by virtue. The math of linear regression, David, is it automatically adapts to the range. So the more volatile it is, the bigger the longer range will be on whatever interval you're looking at. And I've actually kept notes of that somewhere. The biggest I've ever seen it is typically when we have a really big move and then a high volume reversal. And I think I've seen the slower one be as much as 50 ES points wide.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah, so it does adapt. Do you understand that, David? Does that make sense? Yeah. No reason to apologize. Look, this stuff takes time and it takes repetition. So
along those lines, because I have trained my eye to where I don't need, quote unquote, the LRCs, but I have, it's kind of like off to the side and I see it in the corners of my eye or whatever. If they get very narrow, and it's usually, maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be a slower time of day or anything, but if they get really close in a really tight range, then they really become unuseful.
yeah,
I don't know how to describe that.
well, if you, again, just think about the math. If the market is trending strongly in one direction, people always say, oh, the market's trending, and they think they're going to make a ton of money. Trending markets are the hardest markets to trade. And if you look at the LRCs on trending markets, the fast one will be narrow and inside the slow one going in the same direction with a big slope. Mm-hmm. And the problem is you can't find an entry. There's no low risk entries.
Right.
And on the other hand, when you have a big, giant, wide one and the little one is working edges of that one, it gives you really good odds. Like right now, we just blew through the bottom of the wide one on heavy volume to the downside. And that was a perfect breakout of the range short. I did it. And okay. I've been trading this top range, from like 86 to 90. And the floor of that just dropped out. And that doesn't mean it won't get bought now, but it was a great short. In fact, it is getting bought now. So, there you go.
So if I'm looking at, let's say I have a 20-second chart and I'm watching my LRCs there and they're getting narrow, what would happen, and I'll just do this as an experiment next time I see it, but I'm going to ask now, if I went to a 10-second chart.
Say that again, if what happens? If
I go from a 20-second chart and my LRCs are getting really narrow, kind of squeezed in, what would happen if I go to a 10-second chart? Would they widen out?
That's a great exercise. And the answer is it depends. And one of the things that I use, remember on my top screen, the one that's a TV that has the small indexes all next to each other, on that I'm using 45 seconds because I like the range it gives me. And the little one at the bottom, I go from 5 to 90. And if you compare, does going more time make the range bigger or slower? The answer is it depends on the price action. And if zooming out, in other words, if more time doesn't make the range bigger, that's a huge caution sign for me.
Okay.
Because it means it's not, again, the LRCs are about gaming the range, and it means that in any interval, the range is pretty much not there. And again, that tends to happen when it's trending. Mm-hmm. And that tends to be the most dangerous time to try to trade anything. Yeah. It's just, that's why I like the open 5 so much, because you can't be trending in the open 5, but you can catch a trend.
Like a micro trend.
Yes. And sometimes it pays off just with huge, winners, just because it goes so fast. And So the LRCs, I think the best answer to your question though is try it both ways.
I
Try
will.
different. I typically like to go between 5 seconds and 90 seconds, and that gives me a lot of different views of basically the same information. So
I will do that because
yeah.
I have just narrowed, my
Well,
problem
you know
now is
what?
I've narrowed my Bubba down to so specific that that's fine. But when the
I
market conditions are not that, I can't
Yeah.
trade.
Okay, I just stole the share. Can you guys see my share now, or hang
Yep.
on? You can. Okay, you're seeing my domes.
Yep.
All right, so right now you can see over here I'm running the 20-second, and we've got a reversal edge right there for a scalp. Would have been a perfect one. That intersection of the fast and slow is
Yep.
always a good scalp spot. But and right now, up on the top, I'll bring it down here. Here's the 45-second one, and it's even better. So both of those are telling you the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I always leave this one here on 45, but sometimes with this one, if you take it out to 90, you'll see that maybe it's not quite the bottom yet. Oh no, see the 90 right now is saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, that's why I have this set up so I can just quickly go back and forth. And then if we zoom over to 5 seconds, which I just did, okay, see the 5 showed you the turn earlier.
Okay.
So if you could, that's why I like to keep the slower one up on top and typically keep this one around 15 or 20, because if you compare the two, you typically get a really good eyeball on where the turn would have been. See, this
And you
one,
have said this before, I'm sure, but I can't recall your answer.
yeah,
What is your maximum time frame that you would even use LRCs?
120 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, that 2 minutes. And the reason is beyond then, I can prove any case I want,
Right.
And also remember, the footprint up here is telling me a lot about the bid and ask action at each price point or area. And I'm seeing that on Jigsaw too. So the fast LRC is really about helping me see the turns, which are, hard to see on the dome, even with a lot of practice, but they're really obvious, on the LRCs.
Yeah.
And you can see, I've said many, many times, and it's the best way at the open 5 is what you're looking for is the transition from one 15-second bar to the next.
Yeah.
And you see what we're getting is, it's holding the lows and it's making highs. So, forget the trend of the LRC. That's the action you're watching there.
Exactly. And where that translates from that bounce off the bottom there, looking in the dome, because I would have already seen that and I would not be looking at the LRCs anymore. I would be looking at the dome and I would simply be I would be going long every single time it would come back a tick. And I would just take one tick up, one tick up, one tick up until I found a little bit of a hesitation. Then I would probably either wait or I would turn around and I would short it.
Perfect. That you have been a good student. That's exactly right. And look at this is the point that the FUBAR world and the conventional world misses. The faster I make this chart, the better you can see where the entry was. And even if you go down to 5 seconds, that's the fastest I go. It doesn't take brain surgery to see where the odds are really good that you're going to get a tick. This one would have been hard to catch, but boy, that one, it was perfect right there, because if you're wrong, it tells you instantly. And look at the volume on these. The volume on the upside has always been greater than the downside, and that might be changing right now, but might not. That's what you want to constantly look at. And this is accumulating it for you up here. So, all right, go ahead.
The temptation for a lot of people, I know this was me in the beginning, is to look at that and go, great, well, if I would have just taken a long trade there at the bottom and stayed in, then I would have gotten, what is that, 5 ticks or something, or 5 points? What is it?
Yeah, that's really dangerous to think that way, because
it doesn't work that way, because there's too much move. Yes.
Yep. The math from this point on is dead even.
Yes.
Right now the odds are we're not going anywhere because we're in the middle. And I kind of use 30 seconds as a baseline for that, by the way. The 30-second view is kind of the middle, and see, we're right in it right now. So there's no edge at all right here. In fact, and tomorrow we have NFP. Saturday, we're talking about setup edges, and I'm going to go into this in excruciating detail for each of the setups.
I got to tell you, it's funny because after what is this? This is May now, so 4 full months of really just, the only thing I think about is just getting my entries right, getting that one tick, now it's just now like a flower starting to open up going, okay, what else? And so I'm able to absorb more information that makes sense and that might be useful to me.
And you're also at an optimal point to scale the setups you are trading, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, if the volatility stays relatively the same and we don't have like a huge another pullback, which I think is potentially imminent because we've had
Yeah.
such a big, people think, oh, we've had this great recovery. I'm like, the bigger the recovery, the bigger the next fall is going to be. Come on now. So it's going to hurt worse when we do, but it may not be as far down, but it might be way worse as far as quick. And we, as fast as that was in March, that might be nothing. Of course, could be wrong, but so that's why trading, 5 seconds at a time is fine with me, because the more I'm out, the safer I am. I want to protect my money.
Yeah, if you don't have a position, you have no risk. And the idea of only entering the market with the intention of immediately taking money back out of the market and going back to the sideline is life-changing for people that have been struggling with trading. Because if you can do that well, there's a million ways you can grow from that point. But it truly is life-changing. When you get confident like you are developing right now, and I'm watching you do it, where you can, easily go in and just grab $100, $150 every day. I can't describe. I don't know if you can, but the confidence that gave me when I was able to do that was literally life-changing. It was like, I can always make money doing this.
Yeah.
No matter what,
It is literally like going to an ATM machine and knowing there's always $100 that you can pull out.
Yeah. And that's key. I don't go there saying, I'm going to go get $1,000, because that's harder and that's riskier. And you can get to that point later on. And there are times, just think where Amy's going to be when the market goes back to 2018 behavior, where the ranges are more predictable and whatnot. And just think where she'll be able to, pull off 10 lot ticks for 1 tick trades. And,
I'm
that's
really looking
$1,000 a
forward
day.
to that. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
and it's
really
in 5
looking
minutes a
forward to it.
day. It's, it's the same exact thing with just more scale and a bigger account so that the risk isn't inappropriate. And that's all it is.
Yep. I'm going to have to, when we come back to California, when we're allowed to congregate again, you're going
Yes, we'll have to all get together. Absolutely.
Explain that to my husband too, because he's like, so how much money are we? I'm like, we're the same amount as we did yesterday.
Yeah, well,
I'm not gambling.
David has shared that also, explaining, and we had a whole session, a roundtable on your significant others. That's so hard.
It is. And then he's not pressuring me. He's just like, wow, did we catch any of that big move? I'm like, we got $150.
He's just trying to understand it. That's all. And they can't. They really can't. But down the road, when you're always putting that $100 in, and then 5 years from now it's $1,000.
Well, he gets to see the results of those spreadsheets, right? When he finds out that the car is paid off and the credit card's almost paid off, and it didn't come out of his paycheck, then he goes, oh, it's working. Like, yes, dear, it is.
When you're sipping margaritas on the beach in Barbados, there you go.
That's right. That's right. When I pay for the next vacation. Yeah. So, yeah. So I hope this was helpful, you guys.
That's a great suggestion. Lee, did you see that one? What Maria just posted? No, seriously, this is an interesting idea.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
What if we did one with significant others on the call at the same time?
A round table about what
exactly
trading is from the mentors.
Wow.
So the significant others can give us their point of view, and they can hear what it's like from ours. I love that idea.
Every once in a while, I turn the speakers on when he's around and you guys are talking. Some of it just, I'm sure, sounds like gibberish because it doesn't.
There's a lot
anything.
of the terminology, but
it'd be like a PTA meeting.
It would be. It would totally be. Gosh.
Bring your parents.
You know what? What if we do that not as the roundtable of the month, but as some sort of special roundtable? Maybe.
Yeah, I like this.
At the end of May. Hold on. I'm going to look at a calendar real quick. We've got the 29th is when we have our journaling one. You know, we could do it like the week after on the 5th, just as an extra event. What do you think of that idea, Lee?
Yeah, I
Sounds
think that's a
good.
really good idea.
All right, I will put that on the calendar. Good suggestion, Maria. I like that. See, that's the power of the Gestalt. I would have never thought of
Participation.
that because I don't
Yep.
have a significant other right now. So,
Throwing it in there.
yep, great idea. Okay.
And
Support
if you
group.
don't have a significant other, you can bring someone else's.
Yes.
I mean,
Or
if
I
you
can bring
really,
Enzo Einstein, the Maltese.
there you go.
He will have something to say always. In fact, I have to go trim his nails, so I'm going to duck out of here and let you wrap up, Lee.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Right, I think everyone, really good session, Amy. Thanks for pulling this together. I think, from the comments, it's been well appreciated and valuable. And I can well imagine periodically, quarterly, every 6 months, it will be interesting to pull in someone else who's had, a similar journey through the group and is making progress. Whether we have a session maybe from Darren at some point, given his funded journey multiple times, or Anita is certainly making gains, and it'll be interesting to see collectively through the group, who wants to share their experience, for the benefit of newcomers and others going on the same journey.
I think that's
So
great.
I think this will be a neat thing for us to do. So thanks once again for doing it. Thank you everybody for attending. The recording will go up there some point tomorrow. And
Interrupting. I have a
it's not like
question.
you, Jeff. It's not
Yeah,
like
it's
you.
not like me at all. I just realized if we make that on a Friday, many significant others might not be able to attend. Should we do it on a Saturday morning instead?
Yeah, I think if we can spoil a weekend for a whole family, it's a much better thing.
Like a Saturday morning, like 9 a.m. Does that
Well,
make sense?
how about Saturday evening? It's like instead of date
Oh,
night.
well,
Yes.
nobody's allowed to go outside anyway or go anywhere. So,
Well, this will be a few weeks from now, so.
Yeah,
all
I
right.
think
Well,
an ad hoc weekend session could work. Or why don't we, the idea's out there for those who are interested, sound out the significant others. Let's see what the consensus is as to the
good idea.
desire and reality for this, and then schedule-wise what would work.
yes. In fact,
My
is
poor husband's in Japan right now, so.
I'm going to throw that at you, Maria. Why don't you champion that project and figure out a good time for you and post it in the Slack and get some feedback? If you could do that, that would be wonderful. But we
Sounds
won't
good.
do it. Yeah, we won't do it on the Friday. We'll wait to hear from you. All right, I'm disappearing again.
Cool. Right. Let's wrap this up before Jeff interrupts again. How dare he talk while I'm interrupting? So thanks everybody. We'll see you all for the live tape reader and FP tomorrow. Between now and then, stay frosty.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye.